Supernatural, we're gonna go and kill some monsters today.
This started out as one of the shows that my girlfriend watched in full, and I was very skeptical to start because, in case you didn't know, there's 15 seasons and 327 episodes of Supernatural, and I was worried I would have to drudge through a whole shit ton of monotonous TV, and while I still kinda have to do that, it's a lot better than I expected it to be. And that's honestly putting it lightly because I got pretty hooked just like she did when she first started watching the show. So yeah, here are my opinions on the first season as someone who doesn't know a single thing about Supernatural.
They're hunting monsters.
Alright, so the show starts out with little baby Sam, his older brother Dean, and their parents, John and Mary. One night, Mary hears crying over the baby monitor, so she gets up to check on Sam. When she gets to the nursery, she sees a man taking care of the problem, and she's like, "Ooh, thank goodness my husband's finally helping out around the house." She starts to head back to her bedroom when she hears noise coming from downstairs. She kind of takes a peek down, sees the TV on, and sees her husband John asleep on the couch. In a huge panic, she runs up to the nursery to check on Sam. That's when the camera cuts to John, who's woken up by his wife screaming. He, panicked, runs upstairs to the nursery to check out the situation. When he arrives, he doesn't see anything wrong. Everything's pretty calm. Sam's cool. He's just chilling in his crib, and so he's like, "Oh, what's up, little guy?" And then something drips from the ceiling. So he looks up, and he sees his wife pinned against the ceiling, bleeding out of her stomach. While he's looking at her, a big fire kind of engulfs the whole ceiling around her body, and the whole room starts to catch on fire. John grabs baby Sam, gives him to Dean, tells him to get out of the house as soon as possible. He goes back into the nursery to check on his wife, sees that there's nothing he can do, she's already engulfed in flames, so he gets the fuck out of there. After this traumatic event, John dedicates his life and both of his sons' lives to finding and hunting whatever it was that did that to their mother, and we eventually find out that it was a demon. Flash forward 22 years, Sam's in college. He's got a pretty good life going for him. He needed to escape the trauma of hunting monsters his entire childhood. You know, he's got good grades, he's got a good group of friends, and he's got a pretty cool girlfriend, and they're both crazy about each other. But then one day out of nowhere, Dean shows up, and he's like, "Hey, Sammy, Dad's missing, and I need your help to go find him, because this could be pretty bad." Sam's like, "Just when I think I'm out, they pull me right back in." So he goes with Dean and gives it one last ride to try and find their dad. While they're searching, they find a ghost who's been kidnapping and killing men in the area. The boys set up a trap and put the ghost spirit to rest. No dad in sight though. After being reminded what this whole life is about, Sam's pretty adamant about not wanting to hunt monsters anymore, and he gets a ride back to his campus from Dean. After a long night of almost getting murdered by a vengeful spirit, Sam walks into his dorm, kicks off his shoes, and lays in bed, gets a little bit of shut-eye. He doesn't get a lot of shut-eye though, because something falls on his forehead. He opens his eyes, and he sees his girlfriend pinned to the ceiling, bleeding out from the stomach, the same exact way his mom was when he was a baby. And again, history repeats itself when the flames cover up the ceiling and engulf her body, all while Sam's watching. Sam, newly motivated by revenge, sets out with Dean to 1, go find his dad, and 2, kill that fucking demon. Now, the way this show is set up is we have some main story episodes and then a lot of side story episodes. And a lot of these side story episodes follow a near identical format. Sam and Dean get to a new town. Something spooky happens. They investigate about it using fake names and fake jobs. They meet a young, pretty girl who's willing to give information because she's coincidentally related to the incident that's going on. And they take down the monster with whatever friends they make that episode. Most of the monsters in this episode are a spirit of some kind, but the brothers have also taken on a Wendigo Bloody Mary, a skinwalker, a scarecrow, vampires, and a fun episode where it subverts your expectations and they just get kidnapped by a bunch of rednecks who like to hunt humans. Dean and Sam as main characters I feel complement each other very well. Dean does everything his dad tells him to. He's an ideal monster hunting soldier. He's a man's man that'll do anything that he has to protect his dad and his little brother. He's got the leather jacket, the cool car, more brawn than brain. Sam has some daddy issues, but he's a very talented researcher and investigator. He hyperfixates on a lot of stuff, but he will figure out the situation that they're in. He's got a shitty haircut, he's more brain than brawn. Now that we have our plot set up, the boys go and start looking for their dad, but they don't really know where to start. Lucky for them, his dad left behind his little monster hunting encyclopedia, and there's a bunch of little hints in there, so they use that to look for clues and go to towns based on what's in this little notebook. In episode 4, we get our first hint that their father might actually be alive and well. The boys perform an exorcism on an airplane as a favor to one of their dad's old buddies. When the job's done, they ask him how he got their phone numbers to get in contact with them. And the guy's like, oh yeah, I tried to call your dad, but it went straight to voicemail, but there's a voicemail there and it said to call your number if I needed any help with something like that. In episode 9, Sam wakes up after having a premonition in his sleep about a family being attacked by a spirit in their childhood home. Sam's unable to shake the feeling, but he convinces Dean to go check it out. When they get into town, they meet up with an old family friend who's a psychic, and they get her to purify the house of spirits. Sam's still a little bit uneasy about it, so he convinces Dean to watch over the house at night just to make sure everything's cool. And Sam's actually right because the poltergeist that was there returns. Sam and Dean barge into the house and protect the family. Dean grabs the mom and brings her outside the house. Sam grabs the kids and gets them outside of the house, but Sam is brought to the ground and dragged back in the house by the poltergeist. Dean's like, not my fucking brother, and charges into the house, breaking down the door. The situation isn't looking great though, until the spirit of their mom appears out of like a body of flames, and she gently greets both of her sons, and then turns to the poltergeist and is like, get out of my house, sacrificing her spirit to take down the poltergeist as well. Sam asks the psychic to check out the house again, and she's like, okay, for real, there's actually no spirits in here. Sam's like, what was up with my dream? Like, did I tell the future? Am I psychic like you? And she's like, I don't know, dude. So the boys leave town, and the psychic goes back to her house to greet John, who's been hiding out there this whole episode. She's like, dude, why can't you just talk to your sons? Like, you're such a shitty person. And John goes, I want to so bad, but I just can't do that yet. Starting to understand where Sam's daddy issues came from. In episode 11, John calls Dean's phone and tells him to stop looking for him because he's going after the demon that killed their mom and Sam's girlfriend. He instead tells him to go to a different town to take care of a different monster that he heard about. Dean turns into a little soldier and is like, okay, Dad, yes, obey orders. While Sam's like, fuck that, I want to go find Dad, let's go find him and help him track down that demon, I want to find him even more now. They go their separate ways for the episode. Sam meets up with a hitchhiking young woman, and they kind of hang out for a little bit until Sam gets over his tantrum and goes to save his brother from an evil scarecrow. While the brothers wrap up their little monster mission, we get to see Meg at the end of the episode getting a ride from a trucker, and then we see her cut his throat open into a chalice so that she can speak to presumably the underworld. Yeah, she's a demon. In episode 14, Sam has another premonition of a person who was killed, but it was made to look like a self-inflicted kill. They investigate it, but don't really find anything, and then the man's brother dies the same way, this leading them to investigate further, and they learned that the two men who were killed used to abuse the son of the first guy who died. After they learn that, Sam has a premonition of that same child using telekinesis to kill his stepmother. The brothers rush to the house and talk to the kid, which is when they learn that the same thing that happened to their mom also happened to his mom when he was a baby. The kid gets frustrated and locks Sam in a closet. He uses his telekinesis to put a heavy, bookshelf in front of it so he can't get out. In that closet, Sam has another premonition, this time of the kid killing Dean. Sam gets angry and manages to escape the closet using his own telekinetic abilities that he apparently has. They convince the kid not to kill them, but instead, he does that to himself. Episode 16, the boys are hunting some shadow monsters when they run into Meg again, and I was like, alright, cool, I wonder how long it's gonna take them until they find out that she's a demon. And they find out, pretty much right away. They find out that she's the one controlling the little shadow monsters, and this whole thing is a trap to trap them so that she could get to their father. Sam and Dean manage to turn the shadow monsters against her somehow, and she gets knocked through a wall and falls 7 stories before hitting the pavement. The boys hobble back to their motel room, and their dad is just sitting there in the room. They have a tense little reunion until the shadow monsters come back and attack them. They manage to escape the situation, but before they head out, John's like, "We're going our separate ways again. I'm leaving. 'Cause if you guys get hurt because of me, I'll be sad and vulnerable." So he pieces out again, Father of the Year. Episode 20, a fellow hunter is killed by a group of vampires. The vampires steal his gun and bring it to their vampire chief. Sam and Dean recognize that hunter's name in the paper, so they go to that town to investigate what's going on. While they're looking around, they find their father who shows up to investigate. So apparently, that gun that the vampires stole from that guy is like a mythical weapon that can kill anything it shoots. But it only works with its original set of bullets, of which there are only 5 left out of 13. John, Sam, and Dean kidnap one of the vampires and use her as a hostage to try and get the gun in exchange for her. John is handling those negotiations while Sam and Dean go to rescue the victims in the vampire's little lair. During their little talk, the vampire chief attacks John, so the brothers step in and give him some backup. In the commotion, John's able to get his hands on the gun and he shoots the vampire chief right in the head, proving its legendary status. 4 bullets left. John realizes that he would be dead if his sons didn't jump in for backup, so he finally agrees to travel as a family to hunt down that demon that killed their mom and Sam's girlfriend. My sources tell me that his name is Azazel. Episode 21, John reveals the information that he's gathered about Azazel to his 2 sons, which is basically that he knows where he's gonna show up next, and also he knows his target demographic, which is 6-month-old babies on their 6-month, birthday. They start to do some digging, but quickly find the future victim's house because Sam has another premonition starting to come in handy. While they're prepping to take down Azazel, Dean gets a call from Meg to get them away from Azazel and also try and get the gun back from him. John agrees to meet up with her and exchange the gun, but he plans on trading her a replica one instead. He orders his sons to go after Azazel as planned while he handles the Meg situation. Sam and Dean manage to protect the next victims from Azazel. Sam fires a shot at him, but he vanishes before it hits him. 3 bullets left. After the commotion's over, Dean tries calling his dad to check on him, but Meg picks up on the other line and tells him that their dad's been captured. Episode 22, the boys being outclassed, they go to a family friend's house. His name is Bobby. Meg tracks them to Bobby's place and backs them into a corner, but that was their plan because she walked right under a rune thing that they painted called a devil's trap, and while she's under that, she's completely powerless. They interrogate her about where their father is. She won't budge on the information. They threaten her with the gun. Bobby's like, if you use that gun, you're gonna kill the girl that the demon's possessing too. So instead, they choose to exorcise the demon out of the body. Once exorcised, Meg is on the brink of death anyway because of all the damage that her body's taken, falling out of a building, getting shot and stabbed. Before she dies, the real Meg shares with her brothers that during her year-long possessions, she was awake and conscious for some of it, and knows where the dad is being held. The boys go off to save their dad and fight off some demons in the process. In the fight, Dean has to shoot a demon to save Sam, and as we learned, this also kills the man who was being possessed. 2 bullets left. They take their dad to a motel, and he gives Dean some words of encouragement, and he's like, "Thank you for saving your brother and using the gun to save your brother." Dean looks his dad in the eye and lifts the gun up to his head. Sam's like, "What's up? Dad's possessed." "Why you think that?" "He complimented me." "Oh shit, you might be right." John's looking at both of his sons and he's like, "If both of you guys are so sure about it, then go ahead and shoot me." Dean can't bring himself to kill his dad, so Azazel takes advantage of the situation and uses the force to pin the boys to the wall. Sam asks why he killed their mother and his girlfriend, and Azazel tells them that it's because they were getting in the way for his plans for Sam and all the other little kids just like Sam. Azazel tortures Dean. Dean cries out for his father not to let the demon kill him using his body. For a moment, John wakes up from the possession and Sam gets released from his little, force thing. He grabs the gun and shoots his dad in the leg. 1 bullet left. John jolts up from the ground, begging Sam to shoot him again because he still feels the demon inside of him, and he's like, "Listen, we gotta end this for good. End me, end the demon. Do it." Dean's like, "Don't do it, Sam," so Sam doesn't. Azazel flees John's body in a puff of smoke and runs away. Sam gathers his fucked up family into the car and starts driving to the hospital. On the way there, they get hit by a semi-truck, and the season ends with the 3 boys unconscious in the car, in a ditch.
You gotta leave those demons screaming.
Things I liked about the show. Sam and Dean's relationship. I don't know, whenever they had a conflict between the characters, it never felt super forced, it felt kind of natural, realistic for 2 brothers to be bickering about. Even their humor and little dialogue, which is usually kind of cringy in shows like this, was honestly kind of fun and, brotherly. More often than not, while I was watching this season, I had to remind myself that these 2 actors aren't actually related, And if the on-screen chemistry is like that in season 1, I'm excited to see how much it progresses in season 12. Another thing I really liked was the lore that they set up in all of the episodes. I feel like the rules that we set up in combating monsters is relatively consistent, which is nice honestly because they're not just coming up with new bullshit ways to fight the same kind of monster that they already fought. It makes it kind of fun because when you find out what kind of creature we're dealing with, you're like, oh, okay, they kind of handled it this way in this last episode. They could probably do something like that here. A plus and a minus of this season were all of the side characters. Because on one hand, we get a bunch of side characters and they are pretty unreasonably fleshed out for only appearing in 1 episode per person. But then you have it on the other hand, and then, to my knowledge, none of them ever come back. There were a lot of really cool moments in the show that focused so much on the side characters that they meet in each different town they're going to. For example, I really liked the episode where Dean was bonding with a kid over being a protective older brother. And throughout that whole episode, they kept rolling parallels between that kid's life and then Dean and Sam with our children. It was a really cool, dynamic. But then we get to the end of the episode, and I'm pretty sure we're never going to see that kid ever again. Which is the same for every character that we learn to love every episode. Dislikes of this season, John Winchester. Aside from the fact that he's just kind of a really shitty dad, I don't know if his role in the whole first half of this season really works for me at all. He disappears, won't answer any of his phone calls, and deliberately hides from them when they're in the same location. You know, I get that he's like obsessed with hunting the demon and he doesn't want his kids to get hurt, but at the same time, he's giving them little hints and sending them off on super dangerous missions to hunt like monsters where they almost come up dead several episodes in a row. I don't know, I just don't think the dots line up for me on him. Dislike number 2 is Meg. You know, I really don't hate Meg as a character, I just don't think I like the way that they used her. At the end of the episode that she first shows up in, I was kinda hyped. I'm like, oh, this could be really cool. You know, an undercover demon in a show that so far has only dealt with one-and-done monsters. But then the next episode she appears in, her cover gets blown like halfway through the episode. Like, I knew we had to get there at some point, but I was just hoping that they would do something with her character. Now that I've finished season 1, I also have some predictions for the rest of the show. The first one is they have to get more bullets for the gun. I'm not sure how they're gonna get them. Maybe they find them, maybe they make them, but there's no way such like a legendary and mythical weapon is gonna be written out of the show after they use it one more time. Maybe that'll be the direct next plot point, maybe it won't show up again for 10 more seasons, but I think it's gonna come back. Prediction number 2 is that John is gonna die killing Azazel. I just don't really see a whole lot of a character in John past his antagonist. Like, after they kill the demon, what is there to him anymore? I don't know, unless they go some weird route and have him retire in a log cabin in the middle of nowhere, I think this guy's dying to Azazel. I also think that Sam's the Antichrist. Anyways, those are my thoughts. I hope any of it was interesting. I'm gonna go find out what happened after that car crash.
Wendigo is